Should you pull for Rubicante? His roles are tank and an Imperil Enchant. His notable attacks: Firaga, his skill 1, it is 4 split HP dumps. It inflicts AoE fire resist down for 6 turns, and it also grants his buff Face Me at full strength for also 6 turns. What that does is it grants his first counterattack, Counter Fira. Let's get to what that does. It is 2 split HP dumps, and it inflicts also AoE fire resist down for 6 turns. Absorb Blizzara, his skill 2, it heals him. It also far charges, and it is instant turn rate. Inferno, his EX, it is 5 split HP dumps. It grants his buff also Face Me at full strength for 6 turns. Soul Scald, his LD, it is 4 AoE HP dumps. It grants 1 free ability use for him. It inflicts AoE fire resist down for 6 turns, and it also grants his buff Strongest of the 4 Archfiends for 12 turns. What that buff does, it grants Party Fire Enchant and also Party HP cap up by 20%. Warrior's Pride, his FR, it grants his buff Face Me at full strength for 6 turns. It lowers his turn rate down by 50%, and it also raises both his Brave and HP damage up by 50%. Garyon be its name, his BT effect, it is 8 turns, and it also gives him a second counterattack, Counter Firaga. Let's get to what that does. It triggers after Counter Fira, his first counterattack. It is an additional 4 split HP dumps, and it also inflicts AoE fire resist down for 6 turns. His force conditions: you are getting a 40% whenever Rubicante receives at least 0 Brave or HP damage from anyone. You get a plus 5% whenever you're using a fire ability, including off-turn damage, and a plus 10% whenever anyone uses a fire ability. His pros, let's get to what they are. He is by far the best counterattacker in the game. No questions asked. Barely even close. Even in JP standards, when it comes to counterattacks, Rubicante is single-handedly the best. You are getting 6 split HP dumps every single time Rubicante gets attacked. So if the enemy takes up a lot of turns and you have Rubicante in the team,
that's a lot of damage.
If you're looking right here, if you can see through the text, Rubicante's Shinryu, look at how many turns the enemy is taking up. And Rubicante is tanking all of that, and he's counterattacking every single time. You could theoretically beat the boss after activating your FR once and not even needing an echo. That's how crazy Rubicante is. Now that alone easily makes him the best tank in the game. But if that wasn't enough, he can also force charge. I don't know why they gave him that, but I'm not complaining. And because of how self-sufficient he is, soloing content with Rubicante can actually be a strategy. Usually it's a meme by main cord to tell people to just solo with units, but with Rubicante, that might actually be an optimal strategy at times. Especially with this Shinryu, when the boss is taking up enormous amounts of turns at a time. If Rubicante is the only one in the team, that's going to be an easy solo, even if you're the worst player in the Zadia Opera Omnia. He has a turn rate down on himself by 50%, meaning he slows himself intentionally, so he acts as little as possible. It's great. In contrast to a tank like Warrior of Light, who actually moves their turn forward, Rubicante moves his back. And finally, just the icing on the cake out of everything, he has Party Fire Enchant. While it's not true Party Fire Enchant like Neon, if Rubicante had true Party Fire Enchant, that would legitimately be too broken. I think just regular Party Fire Enchant for him is just fine. Now, there are a lot of Party Enchanters nowadays in the game, and there are going to be future Party Enchanters, for example, Kurosame, who's coming after Rubicante. I still think if you want to hit good weakness damage and you need some sort of element, Rubicante being able to provide that as well on top of everything else he does, it's almost unnecessary. So let's get to Rubicante's cons. Now that we got that out of the way, my should you pull rate, I'm joking. There are some cons. Rubicante, his FR, it doesn't work well with fast attackers. If your main DPS is very fast, for example, Terra or Tifa, you might have a bit of trouble when you're using Rubicante because his FR does not want you to move, as with all tank FRs really. So if you're bringing a DPS with Rubicante, I highly recommend bringing someone who moves at normal speed or ideally at a slower speed. Again, you have so many different options for attackers nowadays. It shouldn't be too hard to find someone who works well with Rubicante. But again, if your go-to are people who move fast, you might want to switch up who you're using. And finally, this is the case with all party enchanters. He will suffer from elemental lockouts. It doesn't matter how good he is. It doesn't matter how much he can solo fights. If the enemy is very, very resistant to fire or even absorbs it, Rubicante really can't do anything much about that. That's like one of the only weaknesses that Rubicante has. ass. But again, at this point, you still have a plethora of ways to deal with that weakness, so it's really not that huge of a deal anymore. Now we're getting to the actual should you pull rating. My rating for Rubicante is going to be an S, as he's going to be one of the best units in the game for a very long while. Even in JP, Rubicante is still a clutch tank. And I think if you're interested in defensive teams or tanks in any sort of fashion, even if you have like a 1% amount of interest in getting a tank, this is one opportunity to get a unit you will not see in a very long while. And to my knowledge, I don't think he gets a rerun. And yeah, I'm looking up here, he doesn't get rerun at all. So if you're gonna get him, now is the time. I hope you have enough resources to pull for him if you want him, because if you don't, you're not gonna see him for a very long time. That is my should you pull video for Rubicante. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!